At 18, I learned my parents drained my college fund to pay for my sister's destination wedding. You were never really Harvard material, Mom scoffed. I forged my own path anyway. Now they're asking me to cover her divorce bills. Imagine finding out your entire future, everything you'd worked for, had been stolen, not by a stranger, but by your own parents. But the real gut punch. It was the dismissive laugh my mom gave when I confronted her, a laugh that told me I wasn't just broke, I was worthless. My name is Ethan, and even now, at 22, I can still feel the echo of that moment. I grew up in a house that looked picture-perfect on the outside. 2 parents, an older sister named Nicole, and a golden retriever, Bailey, who, honestly, was probably the most consistently kind member of our family. We were the suburban ideal, the kind of family you see on cheesy holiday cards. But behind the polite smiles, there was a clear pecking order. Nicole was the star, the golden child. She was charismatic, beautiful, always achieving things that looked great on social media, prom queen, student council president, early acceptance to a fancy liberal arts college. My parents, especially my dad, would just glow when they talked about her, like she was destined for greatness. Then there was me. I was a good kid. That was my label. The kind of phrase you use when you don't really know what to say about someone. I didn't hate Nicole for it, not at first. I was just me, quietly good at math, tinkering with old electronics in the garage. I had big plans, though. Georgia Tech was my dream since I was 15. I obsessed over it, spent years researching, building my GPA, applying for scholarships, even getting into a summer program. I had spreadsheets for everything, deadlines, tuition, dorm essentials. I was ready, or so I thought. My parents had always promised both of us college savings. Nothing huge, but a solid foundation. Every birthday check from grandma, every dime I earned from my part-time jobs, it all went into that account. It wasn't just money to me. It was my future, neatly packaged and waiting. So, when Nicole got engaged fresh out of college, with no job, no real-world experience, and announced a destination wedding because it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, I didn't really think much of it. Sure, it sounded extravagant. Sure, Mom was glued to Pinterest wedding boards. But I figured they had money, or maybe Jason, Nicole's fiancé, tall, polished, always in loafers without socks, had rich parents. I was clueless. The truth hit me like a train a week before my high school graduation. I was on top of the world, having just gotten my Georgia Tech acceptance letter. I burst into the kitchen, waving the envelope like a trophy. Dad was reading the paper, Mom was mixing something, and Nicole was on speakerphone, probably with her wedding planner. I got in. I practically shouted, beaming. Nothing. Not a glance. I cleared my throat, said it again, a little louder. Nicole rolled her eyes. Ethan, can you keep it down? I'm on a call about the welcome brunch in Mykonos. Mykonos? I blinked. I thought your wedding was in Santorini? She shrugged, as if it was totally normal. We're doing both. It's all part of the experience. I laughed, awkward and confused. Both? That sounds insane. Isn't that crazy expensive? Nicole gave me a smirk, like a cat who'd swallowed the cream. Oh, it's all taken care of. That's when I finally turned to my mom, who'd stopped stirring. A cold dread seeped into my gut. Wait, what does that mean? You didn't use my college savings for this, right? Dad rustled his paper. Mom looked at me with that placating, dismissive tone she always used to avoid real answers. We had to move some things around, sweetheart, she said lightly. Nicole's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I stood there, frozen. You mean my college fund? You can always take out loans, Mom said, as if she were talking about borrowing a cup of sugar. Plenty of kids do. But I had been saving for that since I was 13. My mom shrugged. And now you're helping your sister start her life. That's what family does. Then came the laugh. That dry, chilling, dismissive laugh. Besides, she added, you're not exactly Harvard material. I didn't say another word. I just walked out, climbed the stairs, and sat in my room, staring at the acceptance letter that now felt like a cruel joke. Hours passed. Bailey, my dog, patted in and put his head on my knee, as if he understood my world had just imploded. That night, I lay awake. Every birthday, every shift at my part-time job, every weekend I'd skipped with friends, flashed before my eyes. All that sacrifice for something that apparently was never mine. My parents didn't even act like it was a betrayal. They saw it as obvious, logical. Nicole's dream wedding mattered more than my entire future. I didn't go to my graduation dinner. Nicole texted me a selfie from a bridal boutique, asking which dress made her look like a goddess. I never replied. It wasn't just the theft of the money. It was the casual cruelty. The way they dismissed me, like I was just the spare. After that night, everything in me shifted. I stopped trusting them. I stopped believing in their family-first facade. I certainly stopped craving their approval. But I didn't break. I didn't give up. I took out those loans, applied for every scholarship I could find, even sold my vintage game collection online. Throughout freshman year, I worked 3 jobs, tutoring math, fixing computers, delivering food at night. I never told them any of it. They never asked. Nicole's lavish wedding happened a week before my first day of classes. I didn't go. Instead, I moved into my dorm with just a duffel bag and a beat-up secondhand laptop. That day, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never, ever let them take anything from me again. What I didn't expect, though, what truly blindsided me, was that 4 years later, after everything they'd put me through, they'd come crawling back. Not with an apology, but with a request. A favor. That's when the real unraveling began. That's when I realized they hadn't changed. They never would. And this time, I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make them regret they ever underestimated me. Nearly 4 years passed. My contact with my parents dwindled to dry happy birthday texts and stiff holiday messages. And honestly, life was better. It was peaceful, focused. I kept my head down, building something real, brick by brick, without their drama or guilt trips pulling me off course. I graduated college, heavy with debt, but fueled by a fierce determination. I landed a solid tech support job, nothing glamorous, but it gave me enough breathing room to start freelancing. Fixing systems, back-end development, troubleshooting for small businesses, I threw myself into it. Within a year, I had a client list, a home office I'd refurbished myself, and my first real taste of independence. It felt earned, not given. It was mine. Nicole, meanwhile, was a constant presence on social media. Jason and I made it to Florence. One post would gush, a perfectly airbrushed photo of her sipping wine in a flowy sundress. Another, self-care week in Bali. Her captions were always about honeymooning, redecorating, or finding herself. What you never saw her post about was a job, because she didn't really have one. She dabbled in lifestyle blogging, a YouTube channel, and even a boutique jewelry brand that folded in 6 months. Jason, from what I gathered, was in consulting, which I was pretty sure was just code for living off my parents' money. I kept my distance, not out of pure spite, but because every time I glimpsed into their world, even a quick Instagram scroll, that old, hollow feeling would creep back. That feeling of being an afterthought. Then, one afternoon, while I was elbow-deep in leftover pasta between client calls, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. I stared at the screen. Hadn't heard her voice in almost 2 years. I let it ring. A few minutes later, a text popped up. "Ethan, we need to talk. It's about Nicole." I didn't reply. The next morning, another. "Please. Just a few minutes. It's important." Against every fiber of my being, I called her back. She picked up on the second ring, breathless, like she'd been pacing. "Oh, Ethan, thank you for calling. I know things have been distant, but we need your help." "No hello. No, how have you been?" "Just, we need your help." I leaned back in my chair. "With what?" "It's Nicole," she stammered, her voice cracking with urgency. "She's getting a divorce." My jaw went slack. "What?" "She and Jason. It's been rough. He's been seeing someone else. He just walked out a few weeks ago." I stayed silent. "We didn't want to tell you until it was official," she rushed on. "But she's devastated. The house is in his name. Accounts are frozen. She has nothing. No income, no assets. She's in pieces, Ethan. Pieces." A pause. "And the lawyer fees? They're astronomical. You know how these things are." Still, I said nothing. She pushed harder. "We were hoping, praying, really, that maybe you could help. Just for now. Nicole's your sister. She needs us." I let the silence hang, every nerve in my body stretched taut. I could feel something simmering inside me, a mix of rage and disbelief. "You want me," I said, my voice slow and even, "to pay for Nicole's divorce." "Well, not all of it," she stammered. "But maybe just help cover the retainer. She needs representation." "Jason has a team of lawyers," I said. I couldn't help but laugh then, a sharp, bitter sound. Mom, for years ago you used my college savings so she could throw rose petals in the Aegean Sea. Now you want me to bail her out. That's not fair, Ethan. No. I snapped. You drained the one thing I had to build a future for her wedding. Then you told me to take out loans because I wasn't Harvard material. Now you're asking me to cover her legal bills. She hesitated. People make mistakes. We didn't know things would turn out like this. You didn't care how they'd turn out then. I retorted. You gambled with my future, and now that she screwed up hers, you want me to fix it. Her voice hardened. We're still your family, aren't we? That ended the call. I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I figured Mom would just go back to pretending I didn't exist, like she had for years. But I severely underestimated their desperation. 3 days later, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it, and there she was, Nicole. Same glossy hair, same air of forced confidence. But she was wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a purse that probably cost more than my month's rent. She didn't even say hello. She just swept past me like she owned the place and plopped down on my couch. I know what Mom said, she began, and I just want to be honest with you. This isn't just about me. This is about showing Jason that I have support, that I have people in my corner. I closed the door, leaning against it. You didn't have people in your corner when you emptied my college account. She waved a manicured hand dismissively. Oh, come on, Ethan. That was years ago. Are you still holding on to that? Yes, I said plainly. She sighed. Look, I know we've had our differences, but this divorce is serious. I'm going to lose everything. The apartment, the car, even Bailey. I frowned. Bailey? Our Bailey. She nodded. Jason took him. Said he needed emotional support. Can you believe that? I wanted to scream. Bailey was my dog. I begged for him on my 10th birthday. But when I left for college, they decided he'd be Nicole's because she was around more. Now Jason had him. I clenched my jaw. That sucks. But that doesn't mean I'm going to fund your legal team. Her voice sharpened. So what? You're just going to watch your sister go down in flames. No, I said. I'm going to watch you learn what it feels like to clean up your own mess. She stood up then, her face flushed with anger. Wow. So all that talk about rising above, being the bigger person, that was just noise. I met her gaze. No, that's why I'm not slamming the door in your face. And that's also why I'm asking you to leave. Her jaw dropped. You're seriously kicking me out? I have a call in 5 minutes, I said, walking to open the door. She stared at me, like she didn't recognize me. Good, because I wasn't the same kid who used to patch her Wi-Fi or walk her dog while she went shopping. I wasn't the quiet little brother who stayed home while she jetted off to islands, posting selfies with hashtags like #blessed. I was someone she no longer controlled. A week crawled by. Then the email started. One from Dad, a pleading one from Mom, then a ridiculously long one from Nicole titled, An Open Letter to My Brother. Each one more manipulative than the last. Guilt, flattery, emotional blackmail. Dad said, It's time to be the man of the family, son. Nicole needs us. Moms, don't you want to be part of something bigger than grudges? Nicole's, I guess some wounds never heal, but I thought you were better than this. They even CC'd my aunt and uncle on one, trying to orchestrate a chorus of guilt. But the real gut punch came 2 weeks later. I was grabbing coffee near my building when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Distracted, I answered. Hello, Ethan. This is Amanda. I'm Nicole's lawyer. I froze. Why are you calling me? I understand there's been some disagreement about financial assistance, she said smoothly. Nicole listed you as a potential lender on her application, and we'd like to confirm whether you're contributing toward her retainer. I'm sorry, what? She indicated you had agreed to help. We just need a verbal confirmation. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's a lie. The lawyer sounded genuinely taken aback. Oh, apologies. I'll update the record. I hung up. I just stared at the screen. She hadn't just asked for help. She'd lied about getting it. She was trying to manipulate the legal system, using my name to secure representation she couldn't afford. In that moment, something inside me didn't just snap. It shattered and then reformed into something harder, colder. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't about college or weddings or dogs. It was about principle. It was about truth. It was about finally drawing a line that couldn't be blurred with fake tears or twisted family guilt. I went home, opened my laptop, and started planning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her lawyer's cool, professional voice just kept replaying in my head, completely oblivious to the fresh damage she'd just inflicted on my already fragile family ties. The calculated nature of it all hit me hard. This wasn't some desperate, last-minute plea. Nicole had planned to use my name, handing it over to her lawyer as if I was just another resource in her endless supply of fallback options. I paced my apartment until dawn, the same question buzzing in my brain like a trapped wasp. How many more times was I going to let them do this to me? It was never just about the money. It was about being used, overlooked, taken for granted. My whole life, I'd been the one quietly picking up the slack, walking Bailey when Nicole forgot, fixing her Wi-Fi at 2 a.m. for some interview, covering her coffee tab. Every single time, I told myself, it's just a phase. One day, they'll see me differently. But they never did. That week broke something in me, but not the way they expected. I didn't spiral. I didn't rage. I didn't even bother replying. Instead, I shut down. I paused freelance work for the first time in years. Canceled meetings. Ignored the constant trickle of emails from my family, like smoke from a fire that just wouldn't die. I went dark. For 3 weeks, I did nothing but exist. I ate ramen and peanut butter straight from the jar, let dishes pile up, skipped showers, and kept the blinds drawn. Because emotionally, I was hiding from a storm. I couldn't talk to anyone about it, not really. My friends had good families, or at least ones that pretended to be good. Families that remembered birthdays and sent postcards, and certainly didn't siphon off college funds for catered shrimp towers in Greece. I hit my rock bottom one night around 2 a.m., sitting on the floor of my messy apartment, half drunk on cold coffee, eating dry cereal from the box. An automated email reminder flashed on my screen, loan payment due soon. Those same loans I never should have had. The ones that existed because my own parents gambled away my future. Right then, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not bitterness. Pure, unshakable resolve. I looked around my dim, cluttered apartment and thought, I'm done. Not with life. With them. I was done letting them occupy space in my head. Done letting their decisions define my self-worth. Done carrying the guilt of not being their ideal son. So I stood up. That night, I cleaned the entire apartment, top to bottom. Scrubbed the sink, vacuumed, did laundry, organized every file. When I finally collapsed into bed, it was almost sunrise. But for the first time in weeks, I slept. And when I woke up, I got to work. Not just work, but the work. The kind that transforms your life when no one's watching. I started with the one thing I could control, my business. I revamped my freelance portal, redesigned my website, rewrote every service description to be sharper, bolder, more professional. I overhauled my LinkedIn. I reached out to past clients, asking for testimonials and referrals. I created a polished PDF services deck and started pitching small startups I admired. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 new clients. Then 5. I tracked everything: hours worked, profit margins, customer retention. I joined online forums for developers, started posting tips, sharing experiences, offering advice. People noticed. My inbox started buzzing with inquiries without me even pitching. One of my posts on a developer subreddit about structuring freelance rates went mildly viral. That led to a connection with a business incubator in Atlanta, and before I knew it, I was handling back-end work for 5 early-stage startups, one of which was quietly blowing up in the fintech space. The funny thing? The more I worked, the more I remembered why I'd fallen in love with tech in the first place. It wasn't just about money. It was about building, creating something that worked because I made it work. Unlike my family, code made sense. Inputs led to outputs. Logic mattered. No passive-aggressive comments, no shifting loyalties. Just clean function and results. By month 3, I paid off one of my student loans in full. By month 4, I'd saved enough to finally upgrade from that beat-up secondhand laptop that got me through college. I bought a sleek new machine. Fast. Powerful. Mine. I kept my head down and built. No social media posts. No gloating. Just quiet, relentless momentum. I started journaling again, too. Simple pen and paper each night, tracking progress, emptying my thoughts. One night, I wrote something that stuck with me. If they couldn't see my worth when I had nothing, they don't get to benefit from me now that I'm building everything. It became my mantra. I taped it above my desk. Months turned into a year. I got healthier, mentally and physically. I stopped eating like a stressed-out raccoon and started meal prepping. Chicken, rice, broccoli, nothing fancy, but consistent. I started jogging in the mornings. 10 minutes at first, then 20, then full runs along the river trail near my apartment. It cleared my head, sharpened my focus. Around this time, I reconnected with Jared, an old college friend who'd started a small web dev company. He was looking to bring someone in part-time. We grabbed coffee, talked shop, and clicked instantly. I took the role, suddenly having both a stable income and a thriving freelance business. Dual streams. More growth. Jared and I eventually partnered on a few projects that did really well. One of them, we even pitched to a local angel investor network. They didn't bite at first, but 3 months later, one of the panelists reached out personally, asking if I'd help with the back end for a new startup he was funding. Just like that, I was in. By the time I turned 23, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I'd built a full-time income, paid off most of my student debt, and launched a SaaS project with a modest but growing user base. I had my own LLC, a clean credit score, and a respectable emergency fund. I wasn't rich, not yet, but I was free. Free from the narrative they'd written for me. Free from the idea that I was second-tier, disposable. I'd built my own future. And that should have been the end of it. The happy ending. The look at me now glow up. The full circle moment. But life, man, life has a funny way of circling back when you least expect it. Because just when I thought I was finally out of their orbit, Nicole came back again. This time, though, she didn't come with tears or lawyers. This time, she came with receipts. And what she revealed, it changed everything. It started with a knock. Not a call, not a text. An actual knock on my apartment door. 3 sharp raps, just past 10 p.m. I was debugging a script, completely in the zone. The sound jolted me, and I instinctively checked my Nest doorbell feed. The moment I saw that familiar outline, arms folded, head tilted slightly like she was already annoyed, I knew it was Nicole. For a second, I thought about pretending I wasn't home. But curiosity, cold and sharp, won out. I opened the door. She looked tired. Not just long day tired, but that deep, stretched-thin exhaustion that makeup can't hide. Her hair was still sleek, but her eyes looked sunken, and that characteristic shine she always carried, that self-importance, the performative elegance, it was dulled. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there with a manila folder clutched tightly in her hands, as if she didn't trust herself to speak. "Ethan," she finally said, her voice low, "I need to show you something." I didn't budge. "Last time you showed me something, it involved lying to your lawyer and listing me as your financial sponsor." "I know," she said, looking down. "And I was wrong. That's not what this is." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She sat on the couch, just as she had 100 times before. But this time, there was no air of entitlement, no smug smile, just raw exhaustion. "I'm not here to ask for money," she said, placing the folder on my coffee table. "I'm here because I found out something about Mom and Dad. Something I think you deserve to know." I raised an eyebrow. "Go on." She opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Some were bank statements. Others looked like notarized letters. At the top of the stack was a printout from our parents' joint account, one I recognized because I used to deposit birthday checks into it when I was a teenager. Nicole handed it to me. "Do you remember the money Grandma left us?" I froze. Our grandmother, Dad's mom, had passed away when I was 14. A stern, no-nonsense woman who wasn't exactly warm, but she was consistent. Dependable. I remembered her funeral, remembered Dad getting oddly emotional, not just from grief, but something heavier, more complicated. "She left us each a trust," Nicole continued. "Separate ones. Yours was $50,000. Mine was $50,000. The terms were the same, locked until age 18, to be used for education or housing." I blinked. "What?" "I didn't know until last week," she said. "When I was going over some financial records with my divorce attorney, she found a weird transfer from my trust account to Mom and Dad's joint savings. So I started digging. I stared at the document in my hand. There it was, plain as day. A withdrawal from a custodial account, titled in my name, transferred directly into an account held by our parents. The date? 3 weeks before Nicole's wedding. My stomach twisted into a knot. "They used your inheritance," she said, almost whispering. "Not just your college fund. Your inheritance. They closed the trust early and liquidated it." "That's not even legal," I muttered, flipping to the next page. They falsified an educational waiver, she explained. Said it was going toward your college tuition. Then they rerouted it. She paused. The paper trail's shaky, but my lawyer said with enough digging, it's provable. I sat back, letting the full weight of it crash over me. They hadn't just made a bad decision. They'd committed fraud. Against their own son. Against me. Why are you showing me this? I finally asked. Why now? Nicole hesitated, then said something I never, ever expected to hear from her. Because I owe you. And because I think I finally understand what they did to you. She looked genuinely ashamed. Not performatively, but truly. When Jason left, they didn't help, she said. Not really. They offered a guest room and some tough love. That was it. I begged for help with legal fees. Mom said, well, you chose that man. She gave a short, bitter laugh. The same people who moved heaven and earth for my wedding wouldn't spare a dime for my divorce. I thought I was the golden child, she continued. Turns out I was just the useful one. The one they could parade around. The one who looked good on paper. And when I wasn't useful anymore. She trailed off. I didn't say anything. Not out of spite, but because I needed to absorb this new version of Nicole. This quieter, cracked version who finally saw the whole machine from the outside. I'd waited years for her to get it. For her to see me not as the bitter sibling with a chip on his shoulder, but as someone who'd been systematically sidelined. And now she did. I don't expect forgiveness, she said after a moment. But I figured if you wanted to do something about it, you deserve to have the tools. She stood up, left the folder on the table, and walked to the door. Just before she stepped out, she turned. They underestimated you, Ethan. I did too. But I think they're about to learn what a mistake that was. She left. And that's when it hit me. I'd spent so long building my life away from them, distancing myself, proving I didn't need them, that I'd never once considered turning around and facing them head on. Not with resentment. Not with yelling or Facebook posts or dramatic Thanksgiving speeches. With power. Real, undeniable, legal, financial power. And now I had it. I spent the next 3 days living inside that folder, cross-referencing every document, highlighting key transfers, making copies and backups of backups. I uploaded everything to a secure drive and shared access with Monica, an attorney friend who'd helped me with a freelance contract dispute once before. She took one look at the trust records and just whistled. Oh yeah? This is a mess. You've got grounds. Civil? I asked. Absolutely. And if you want to go nuclear, there's a fraud angle too. But that gets ugly. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, I don't want to destroy them. I just want to take back what's mine. Monica nodded. Then we'll do it by the book. No surprises. Over the next few weeks, I built my case. Quietly. Strategically. Nicole provided more documents. Monica helped draft a formal demand letter. We even uncovered other misuses of funds, small ones, maybe, but enough to show a clear pattern. There were irregularities with Nicole's own trust too, suggesting Mom and Dad had dipped into hers before she turned 18 as well. I started tracking my loan payments. Every single cent I'd taken out because of their lie. Every interest fee I'd paid. Every month I'd spent working overtime to patch the hole they'd left. All of it documented. And then, while scanning old email backups, I found something I'd completely forgotten. An email from Dad, sent when I was 17. The subject line, scholarship forms. In it, he explicitly told me not to apply for certain aid programs because it'll mess with the trust fund payout. We don't want to complicate things. I remembered being confused at the time. Now I knew why. They were never planning to use that money for me. They were just buying time to reroute it. That email was the final, sickening piece of the puzzle. By month's end, we had a file thick enough to fill a legal briefcase. But I didn't go to court. Not yet. Instead, I waited. Because a better opportunity was coming. One they couldn't squirm out of. One where the spotlight would be squarely on them. And where, for the first time, they'd be powerless to hide. My parents had meticulously built their reputation in our community. Pillars of support. Dad sat on the board of a local business mentorship group. Mom was treasurer of the neighborhood association. They hosted fundraisers, threw garden parties, posed for pictures with plaques. And next month, they were being honored at a local gala for outstanding family contributions. The irony nearly knocked me off my chair. I RSVP'd anonymously. Then I started preparing for the main event. Not a scene, not a tantrum, just the truth. Neatly packaged, legally backed, and strategically timed. They had taught me everything I needed to know about appearances. Now, I was going to show them what happened when the curtain fell. The night of the gala arrived like a brewing storm disguised as a perfect summer evening. It felt warm and easy on the surface, but underneath, a heavy charge hung in the air, waiting to break. I wore a crisp navy blue blazer, not to impress anyone, but because I knew exactly how my parents would interpret it: success, stability, professionalism. I wanted to look like the son they never thought I'd become, the one they pushed aside, the one they bet against. The event was at a sprawling country club, all white columns and manicured lawns. The lobby chandelier looked like it cost more than my entire apartment. I arrived early, settling into a rear table, perfectly positioned to observe, yet remain unnoticed. For now, the evening started with a cocktail hour, a symphony of fake laughter and tight handshakes. I spotted my parents near the center, dressed to the nines. Dad in a tailored gray suit, Mom in a crimson dress that shimmered under the lights. They looked every inch the respected community pillars they'd cultivated. Smiling, toasting, posing for photos in front of a backdrop that read, "Honoring those who give back." Nicole wasn't there, we'd agreed on that. She didn't want to be seen. Not yet. But she'd helped me meticulously prepare every single piece of what was about to happen. After an hour, guests were ushered into the banquet hall. Round tables, polished silverware, crisp white tablecloths, elaborate floral centerpieces. It was elegant, tasteful, and utterly hollow. A few speakers took the stage, some awards for local entrepreneurs, a charity initiative. Then came the main event, the one labeled the Legacy Award, celebrating a lifetime of community dedication. That's when they introduced my parents. A short video montage played, pictures of them volunteering, mentoring, smiling beside ribbon cuttings and award plaques. The narrator's voice boomed, praising their financial generosity, their example of family leadership and selflessness. I couldn't help but let out a soft, bitter scoff. Then, to a round of polite applause, they walked onto the stage. Mom beamed. Dad gave his trademark modest wave. They looked like royalty, untouchable. Until the envelope arrived. The MC handed Dad the mic and stepped back. My father cleared his throat, starting with a joke about being more comfortable in a workshop than on stage. The crowd chuckled. And then, right on cue, one of the event staff walked up the stairs. She was young, early 20s, dressed in black slacks and a white collared shirt. She held a cream-colored envelope with both hands and whispered something to the MC. I watched as confusion flickered across his face. A pause. Then he leaned into the mic. "Apologies for the interruption, folks. We've just received a document related to tonight's honorees. It appears to be from their son." A ripple of murmurs swept the room. My father's smile twitched. My mother blinked hard, her eyes darting. I stood up from my table and began walking toward the stage. Slowly, calmly, heads turned. Whispers followed me like a shadow. The MC hesitated, clearly unsure what to do, but I gave him a steady nod as I stepped beside him. "May I?" He handed me the mic. I turned to face the crowd. For a moment, I saw them all. Not just my parents, but the entire room. Donors, executives, neighbors, friends. All the people who'd been fed the same narrative for years. The benevolent couple, the generous parents, the pillars of the community. I took a deep breath. "My name is Ethan," I said. "Some of you know me. Most of you probably don't. I'm the son of tonight's honorees." I looked directly at my parents. Mom's lips were a tight line. Dad's jaw was clenched. "And I'm here because I believe the truth matters." I held up the envelope, then carefully pulled out a set of documents, passing copies to the stunned MC. "Inside these pages, you'll find proof that the people being celebrated tonight used their son's college fund and inheritance." A collective gasp swept through the room. Not to support his education, but to fund a wedding in Santorini and a luxury vacation package. More gasps. I continued, my voice steady. "They falsified documents, claiming the money was for tuition so they could withdraw it early, then rerouted it into a personal account and spent it. When I confronted them, I was told I wasn't Harvard material and to take out loans instead." Murmurs grew louder. Chairs shifted. I did take out those loans. I worked 3 jobs to survive college. I built my career from scratch while they continued posting beach photos with hashtags like #blessed. I paused, letting that sink in. They did all of this while being praised for their generosity, while upholding a public image that doesn't match the private damage they've caused. I turned back to the crowd. I'm not here for vengeance. I'm here for honesty. Because I think if we're going to honor people for being selfless and moral, we should know who they really are. I handed the mic back to the still stunned MC, turned, and walked off the stage. Behind me, the shocked silence cracked into a storm of whispers, pointing fingers, and frantic exchanges. My parents remained frozen in place. I didn't stick around for the aftermath. I walked straight out of that banquet hall and into the warm night air, where Nicole was waiting in a car parked across the street. She rolled down the window, her eyes wide. You did it. I nodded. They can't spin it now. Not with those documents. She looked down, a tremor in her voice. They're going to hate us. Probably, I said. But they already chose their version of us a long time ago. She unlocked the door. Want a ride? I slid into the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilarating release washing over me. 2 days later, news of the gala incident made the local business journal. Not front page, but big enough. The community board released a polite statement about reassessing the criteria for honorees. Dad was quietly removed from the mentorship group. Mom stepped down as treasurer to focus on personal matters. The fallout was clean. No police. No lawsuits. But their names were tarnished. Their meticulously crafted reputation was shattered. Their ability to pretend, completely gone. They tried to call me once after that. Just once. I didn't answer. They left a voicemail that started with, "Ethan, we need to talk," and ended with, "This is a misunderstanding." I deleted it before it finished. Nicole kept her distance too, finding her own path. She moved to a new apartment, got a part-time job with a nonprofit, and started seeing a therapist. We weren't best friends overnight, but the air between us was different now. Lighter. More honest. I never got the money back, but I got something infinitely better. I got closure, and I got to look in the mirror every morning knowing I didn't just survive them. I outgrew them. In the end, the boy they wrote off as not Harvard material became the man who rewrote their legacy. And I did it without their permission. They tried to bury me, but they didn't realize. I was the foundation.